The AM pillar team is not the same as an AM team, line team. But how many AMs do we have? Hello, I'm Tom. Welcome to my channel. We're talking about continuous improvement in an industrial setting. And one of the things that I've noticed, and recently again with launching good autonomous management, autonomous maintenance, AM, is that many teams, and especially that are going to be the pillar teams, that they have a bit of difficulty at first understanding an important difference between the pillar and the AM line teams. Now, you probably know who I'm referring to. If you're watching this, you are doing great, by the way. So I have a really nice AM implementation going on in a couple of factories at the moment. But the thing is that I really want to share this with everyone out there because I've seen it before a whole bunch of times as well. The AM pillar and the AM team, they have almost the same implementation route. They have the same things that they're doing at the beginning. And when you follow a sort of a TPM type of implementation and you start with a pilot phase and then you go into an expansion phase, there is this, it's sort of easy to make the mistake of thinking that the AM pillar and the AM pilot team, that they are sort of the same, which they really are not. So the difference between them, or maybe first the reason why it usually happens, and that is when we start in the pilot of autonomous maintenance, autonomous management, we start with a pilot team. So we have a team on a line, and because this is the first AM implementation that we do, generally this team has like the production manager in it and maybe even the maintenance manager as well. So it has a pretty management dense team very often, right? And it's not a bad thing. This happens. But then after this team has made some success, I want to launch a second team, maybe a third team, and we're thinking of also starting the pillar. There are also pilot implementations where we already start the pillar when there's only one team active. What you will see then is that we take those managers that are guiding that one AM line team, and they are basically also the core of the AM pillar. And it becomes very logical to see why some confuse the difference between the two of them. But if we look a little bit further down the line, you will see that that AM pillar needs to support a couple of teams. So the one pillar supports all of the AM line teams. And also, if you are working in a production manufacturing type or any industry where you're working with shifts, so you work 24/7 or maybe 24/5, something like that, and you have shifts going around the clock, then generally I would suggest that you do your improvement teams, Kaizen teams, the bigger technical hunter type of teams, Kaizen events. You do those mainly with people who work in day shift and basically who do not work in shifts at all, right? Who work more or less office hours, because most of your support staff will be in those office hours, and it's way easier. It has a very big advantage to have people in a team who work within the same sort of work pattern, the same shift. On the other hand, AM teams, because they need to be autonomous, they need to be populated by the people actually working in that workplace, on that line where you're implementing that AM team. They are ideal to be populated with people from a shift. So, for instance, a coordinator or a shift leader can be manager of the team. You can at some point also go just to a senior operator, and so somebody in that shift, and you've got 2, maybe 3 operators from that shift. You've got a line technician that is also in a shift rotation, hopefully, and that becomes your AM team. And this sort of makes that AM teams, you really need to build them up from that operator and technician level, right? Really the people who need to become autonomous, they need to be in the AM team. And that means managers don't really have a role in the AM team directly. They will, at regular intervals, be there for support, but they are in the pillar. Now we see the first shift. But this is not just because of the practicalities of it. The big difference in the role is that the pillar needs to support those things that all of the teams will go through, right? So when we go through an AM line team's route, they will do this clean out, they will check the contamination of the line and cleaning and stuff like that, and they will go on to first level maintenance, and they all want to implement certain systems. But as soon as you implement systems, as soon as you are looking a bit further than your line, you are almost certainly outside of the mandate that the team members have. Remember, your pilot team may have the production manager there, but the production manager isn't going to be on all of these teams. We're talking maybe shift leader, right? So if we are talking about tagging and then the system not doing the actual tagging, how do we manage tools and the stock of such things in the factory? How do we manage right? What I'm talking about when I'm referring to the tagging, the whole system around it, the AM team would really like, and they sort of should work to, I always say, every member of the team should make one tag every shift that they work on that line. It's a good rule of thumb. But it's not very hard, but this is sort of the level you want to get to. And at some point when you have a whole group of operators, you sort of want to get a line that is under AM, especially in the early stages, a tag per shift. Even for those operators who are not in the actual AM team. Right? That's sort of what you want to get to. But to get all of that rolling, you need to teach people how to tag. AM, pillar, bit, team mainly have to do that. But then those tags need to go to the maintenance department, probably. They need to be judged and sorted. There's a gatekeeping process. They need to be planned. Some parts may need to be ordered. Then they will be executed and they're closed. In all of these steps, there is quite a lack of communication in many organizations. So you want to improve that. You want a line that is under AM to have a list at that line of which are all the open tags currently in the system. Because if you want your operators to be tagging all the time everything that they see that is not good, well, you don't want them to put in too many double tags, right? So they need to know what is already being addressed. It also creates good ideas of the sort of level of detail they need to look at for tags. Right? If they see a couple of things like these wires are exposed, or this hose is flapping around somewhere, or I've got an unneeded screw sticking out of a beam here. Oh, I'm allowed to make a tag for these non-critical production things. Yes, when we go into AM with a line, we do not accept any problems on that line anymore. Right? So we up the level, or actually maybe we reduce the level of seriousness needed before we raise tags that go into that maintenance system. It is not only about things that stop the line. It is about everything to make that whole work process work smoothly. So we need to generate a lot more. Now, then next to that open tasks list, that open tag list, we also would like to have, and I think weekly is a very good frequency for this. Also, if your team meets weekly, it's on their meeting. One of them generates the list of tags that were closed on their machine in the last week. And they go through it. They judge it. Right? They say, okay, are these really closed? Are we happy with the results? Do a bit of control on the things that are being done and reported done on your machine. Right? But also all the other operators, because next week, that list may have gotten some comments from colleagues as well, and then it's closed, right? So next week, you bring that back to the maintenance planner or whoever is sort of responsible for keeping all of the maintenance jobs, which includes the tags, organized, and you do this sort of reporting. Okay, really good, great, thank you. That tag, however, we are not happy with how it was solved, so we're going to reopen it. Right? This type of communication, once a week, brilliant. It also shows that things are being done on your line, right? So it shows that having AM on the line really does good things for that workplace. But that whole system, so the communication with maintenance, maybe have a bit of a meeting on the quality of tags, have that report come out of your maintenance management system. It's not all maintenance management systems just have it available automatically. Most of them can do it, but all kinds of things like that. Pillar has to arrange it. That's why there is, generally in an AM pillar, you have either maybe a maintenance manager, maybe a maintenance planner, maybe a maintenance engineer, but somebody from that maintenance organization who is sort of in that job order gatekeeping process, right? Or the planning process, somebody who's in that system, not a technician per se. They will help the teams more directly, but somebody who is in that organization of the tagging and all the other types of maintenance work orders. Same thing goes for tool stocks. You put up a nice shadow board. You've got all your cleaning tools and a couple of wrenches and some Allen keys, and then, so if one goes missing, how do we notice? Maybe we check at the beginning of every shift. So this is something that your AM line team can probably still decide, because they sort of decide how we work around this line. But it's the coordinators that also need to do a check. Okay, or your shift leader. It's already sort of production manager actually has purview on these type of organizational changes probably. So we're getting slightly outside of the circle of influence of the team, edging on it. But then, so when it's missing, where are actually our tool stocks? Who can get them? Who will reorder that central stock of tools? Where do we even order them? So who is the supplier to have good quality cleaning and more mechanical tools? That, please, do not let every AM team rediscover that. You want to centralize that solution, make it easy, so that your AM team will simply say, we need a pair of scissors here, 2 mallets over there, and a set of Allen keys, only number 4, 5, and 7 are really needed over there. And they just know how to get it, right? So it should be relatively easy for them, after they make the more difficult decision of which tools do we need where on the line. That is an AM team decision. They really need to be thinking about how do we work on this line. But the pillar needs to have those systems organized, right? So those usually manager and specialist level people that are in that AM pillar, they need to make sure that there is a tool replenishment system, that we know where to order, who orders, what are the rules around it, and that it's all easy and well-oiled as a system. The same for your cleaning, inspection, lubrication list, so basically your checklists. What is on the checklist for our machine? Again, AM line team will decide, right, based on their investigation of the machine. But that the shift supervisor does spot checks quite frequently, and then your production manager, but maybe also your quality specialist, or organize it in some way that they do spot checks on the quality of how this checklist is filled in, on where are problems for your operators and technicians, and that there is a reporting system around it. We act on things that go wrong. That is all the system around these checklists. Your AM team, again, is not going to make that system. Pillar, it is your responsibility to set up that system. Now, the nice thing is, remember when we just had the one pilot team, and it sort of morphed into the pillar that also supports that pilot team, this core of your pillar sort of lives through all of these changes and does it together with the team, right? That's why your first AM team has relatively a lot of managers in them, because they can break through the organizational structures. And that is good. But at some point, there is really going to be a split between the pillar who supports all of these teams. So that, when you are setting up your AM, that is really important to understand. You want to move towards autonomous teams. So no real management in there, just first line management, shop floor management, like your shift leaders, like your coordinator, supervisor, whatever you have, so that the lowest level managers are ideal leaders for AM teams. And a pillar that does have the management cloud to be able to really affect change throughout the organization and make sure that the thinking for the AM teams, that is still their job, but once they make the decision, the execution of those things are relatively easy. So also think about, how do we set up our total cleanout? Do we have a couple of line technicians available then, and how is that organized? Make such types of commitments in management. Hey, managers in the pillar team can make such agreements, right? They can go to a steering committee or just a management meeting and say, look, we're planning a couple of total cleanouts, one every month or so, because we're starting up new AM teams. We will need for a whole day to have 2 technicians available for that. Let's organize it, right? And they will discuss it with the maintenance team, how to make that work and stuff like that, right? Because this line team will not do it. But also, where do we have our colored floor tape for taping off areas on the floor where equipment or pallets go? These are things that are not in your normal production organization. So somebody needs to arrange it. Who do we bring in to do paint work? Right? Think about those things at the pillar level. Make it easy, make trainings, give ideas, but support all of your line teams. So that is when you are starting up AM, autonomous maintenance, autonomous management. At first, there's sort of an overlap between the pillar and that first pilot team, but that grows apart as soon as you launch multiple teams. And then the pillar and the line team, line teams, they really grow into their own roles. And that is one of those transitions that your people need to go through. So if you are a continuous improvement or a lean specialist, know that this is very likely to happen in your organization when you start the process of AM. And your AM pilot team will almost not be autonomous because there's a whole load of managers in there. That's not autonomous. It is just a testing ground, right? It is to make sure that those people who will become the pillar team have first-hand knowledge and experience of what the team will run into. But after that, these teams, they need to become autonomous. And that needs a lot of support. That will be the pillar role. Now, I hope that this clarifies a big part of what that role of the AM pillar versus the role of the AM line teams is. If it did, don't forget to hit that like button. If it raises different questions or experiences, comment on it. I love your comments. I also know other people love to read your comments. Let's build this knowledge together. For now, I wish you the best of luck implementing and really mastering this AM mindset. And as always, don't forget to enjoy the continuous improvement journey.